So our next speaker is the head of our design transformation practice at MadPal, and he's worked with organizations from across the health ecosystem to try to affect change within their organizations, change the culture to be more person-centered and to embrace innovation in whatever form that takes. He's also had very up-close and personal experiences with the health system that kind of shape his perspective and point of view. And he's just a wonderful human. So please join me in welcoming Adam Connor.
I work in design transformation, and what that basically means is that I help organizations try to think more about people. I started my career as a product and service designer, and started to kind of realize a few years ago that the work I enjoyed the most wasn't necessarily the products and services that I was working on, but it was trying to figure out how to get a group of people through a project, create something meaningful, and not kill each other in the process. So I got really interested in learning about what it takes for design to work well in organizations. And then that grew into what does it take for organizations to really adopt a human-centered mindset, a human-centered perspective. And what I wanted to share with you today are some of the lessons that I've learned in doing that work. I've tried a lot of things. I've worked with people in a lot of different ways. And I've learned a lot of lessons by trial and error. And so the first one here comes from very early on in this work, and it's around training. And it's that training is just one small piece of a much bigger picture when it comes to helping organizations kind of grow, strengthen, scale human-centered design and innovation. And the reason this comes up so often for me is that when I work with organizations in these challenges, they're like, well, we ran 3 design boot camps, and you know, we've trained so many people. We just don't understand why more people aren't thinking this way, aren't doing these things. And really, when you think about what design is, how it manifests in terms of the work we do, design it's a sequence of behaviors. It's a series of thoughts and decisions that we make. And so if you take that behavior lens to design and use something like the COM-B model for understanding why behaviors take place, you can start to see why training alone does not get us the changes that we're after. The COM-B model basically says that in order for a behavior to take place, someone has to have the right capability to actually perform the behavior. They have to know how to do it. They have to cognitively know how to do that thing. They have to physically be able to do it, right? It says they have to have the opportunity to do it. They have to be in a physical environment that allows them to enact that behavior, as well as a social environment where they feel like it's okay to do that thing. And they have to be motivated to do it. They have to have extrinsic or intrinsic motivation. They have to want to do the thing. So if we're trying to get people to design or to use more design techniques or to think in more of a human-centered way as they're making decisions, and we're thinking about training, well, training really only hits upon capability, right? We're really only touching upon someone's ability to understand what it is they can or should do. It's not touching upon the other things, the opportunity, the motivation. And in order to do that, we have to think about our processes, our policies, right? The information that we're sharing with each other, the roles that people have. We have to think about people's beliefs and their values, and again, their roles and structures, because that gets to the motivation that they have. So if we really want to scale and strengthen human-centered perspectives in our organization, we have to hit on all these things. It's not just train them and they'll do it. The next that I want to talk about, it comes up every day now. Has anybody here heard this term, new term, lean. Yeah? The next one is about frameworks. I consider design thinking to be a framework. Lean is considered by many to be a framework. There's Agile. There's, in Agile, you have Scrum, you have SAFe, you have Kanban, you have Six Sigma. You have all of these things. And here's the thing. None of them are the answer. There is no framework that will make you a more human-centered organization. There is no one framework that will do that. All of these have great things about them. All of them have some not so great things about them. Frameworks are troubling because the way we've kind of productized them, so that they're easy to sell, they become so rigid. They become kind of inflexible, and we can't really apply them to our organizations the way we should be able to. But if you look back at where frameworks all start from, they all start from someone or some group set of beliefs. If you read the Agile Manifesto, if you look back at the history of Lean and think about the principles behind them, you start to find that flexibility. And if you look across all these frameworks, you will find elements that overlap between them. You will find great things that sound a hell of a lot like human-centeredness. So what we've come to do with organizations we're working with is not pick any one framework, but pick and choose the principles that we feel exemplify what we're trying to achieve, and then choose strategies that match those principles. Because when we watch organizations work, we think about their behaviors and how those beliefs, their beliefs and values drive those behaviors, and how the world around them actually drives those beliefs. When we put frameworks into place, we're really only influencing the world. We're really only influencing that space. So we need to think about this whole picture. What do people believe? What do they value? How do those things come together? I've heard it mentioned a few times so far today, this word silos, right? I started my career in a financial services organization, which was extraordinarily siloed. I hated every other silo except for the one I was in at whatever given day it was. We reorged so many times. I think I was in all the silos at one point. Designers hate silos. We constantly talk about how we have to break down the silos. The silos are horrible. And I've met a lot of designers who would like to organize and structure organizations so that there are no silos. Silos are inevitable. That's what I've learned. No matter what you do, when you start to have enough people, people will group around common interests, around common values, common struggles, common opportunities. It's what they do. I've worked with a lot of organizations that tried to combat silos by going from department-based organization to product-based organization. So now, instead of having a design department and a development department and business and everybody separate, they would have one designer, one developer, one researcher, and they would all work on a product team. So all the silos emerged around the products. Now the products weren't talking to one another. There's this law out there that comes from the world of computer science called Conway's Law. And it basically says the way in which you organize your company or any organization, that will directly determine what that organization produces. Because the way the different groups within the organization talk to one another is the way that the things they produce will talk to one another. And if you think about your experience with any healthcare organization, a hospital, an insurance company, I don't care what, and you think about how you've interacted with them and the different phone calls you've made and the people you talk to, I bet you can imagine this. You'll start to see where people aren't talking to one another because those roles aren't connected in the organization, all right? I had a friend, one of my teammates, talk to me and share a story about a recent project that was around some healthcare billing. And she's like, we're doing some research, and this participant sat me down, and he's like, watch this. So he goes on the computer, brings up his bill. He's like, this is how much money I owe. My teammate's like, okay. He's like, now watch this. Picks up the phone, calls the number that the bill says to call, voice automated line, gives him a completely different amount that he owes. She's like, all right, I get it. He's like, no, watch this. Picks up the phone again, calls the hospital directly, gets connected to the billing department to speak to someone, and she gives him a completely different number, right? We build these things in silos today. They don't talk to one another, and that drives these experiences that we have. So what do we have to do if we know that silos are inevitable? We have to think about how we group people and use the strengths that come with that. Because there are strengths to silos. There are strengths to the camaraderie that people develop around those shared objectives, those shared needs. So let's use that. And let's design our organizations to bridge those gaps between silos where we need to. Let's make sure we're keeping the entire experience in mind and that we're connecting people, we're connecting our teams where they need to talk to one another, and we're coordinating those efforts. And now I want to talk about innovation. We all love innovation. We all want to be innovative. And I work with companies, a lot of whom have innovation labs. And I like innovation labs a lot. You can have a lot of fun in an innovation lab. But I think innovation labs exemplify this point, that innovation is just a midpoint. If you think about what innovation really is, it's around finding these new valuable concepts. At least that's kind of what we've contained it to be. That's what a lot of the work in these labs or these projects really is. It's how can we find these new valuable concepts that will really change someone's life for the better? Tremendous, awesome work to be doing. But that's a midpoint, because before that, there is all this work that needs to be done around recognizing and finding opportunities, understanding. We've talked a lot today already about understanding patients, understanding people's lives, making sure we're getting as close to people as possible. We need to be doing that on a continuous basis, not just every once in a while, not just when a new project comes up. Organizations need to be shifting to continuous learning. Not just continuous iteration on existing products, but actually going out and learning as much as they can all the time. That leads to finding these opportunities to be innovative. And then from there, on the other side, we need to support and evolve the solutions that are coming out of these innovation centers. Innovation centers, something that I've learned about them, is that in order for them to work in an organization, you have to have a functional, a strong product or service design practice as well. You can't have an innovation center turn things out, turn things over to an organization, and then have no design team there to take it and run with it, because what comes out of an innovation center isn't done yet. It's never done. There has to be a team that continuously evolves and learns and iterates on whatever it is that's been created. So we need to make sure that when we're working to build design capabilities in our organization, we are designing for the complete process. Not just brainstorming, not just coming up with new concepts that people get really energized about, that look really good on paper or in prototypes or win certain awards. We need things that we can actually get out the door, that we can put into people's hands and really change people's lives, and that we can continuously evolve. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that up front, we're constantly looking to further our understanding about what people are actually going through and what they need. And finally, I want to talk about collaboration. Collaboration is what got me started in wanting to do this kind of work, because it was getting people to collaborate on projects that I found so fascinating. And I became very interested in studying this and writing about it. And everybody these days talks about the importance of collaboration. I've come to hate the term, because I no longer know what the hell anybody means when they say that we collaborated on something. I don't. Because I can go into one organization and I can look at how they're collaborating, and I can find things that are extremely consensus-driven. Oh, we're collaborative, so we have to wait for everybody to say yes before we can move forward. I can walk into another organization and talk about, well, how do you collaborate? And find that, oh, it's not consensus-driven, it's just one person polling an audience. So everybody contributes an idea, and then one gets picked, right? I can find some where it's like a bloodbath because it's compromise, so everybody just goes head-to-head, right? There are lots of versions or flavors of collaboration, and they all have some value to them. So collaboration is really around a balancing act. Don't just talk about being more collaborative. Talk about what that means. Figure out what that means for your organization, right? Think about empowerment and what people are empowered to do. Because on one side, you have consensus-based decisions, and that matters. You need some level of consensus, some level of group agreement that, hey, yes, this is, in general at least, the right direction for us to be headed. And you need some direction that may not be what everybody thinks is the right answer at the time, but somebody's got to drive that forward. So design your organizations to enable information and expertise sharing, right? Build upon consensus when it develops, and empower people to make decisions when they need to. So that's where I'll leave you today. I want to thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day. I'll be here all day. Thank you very much.